Hey, great Monday morning. It is a frigid morning in the city of Brownsville. And I say it's a frigid morning in the city of Brownsville because we are not used to this type of weather, weather. We're not used to this type of weather. Hardly ever gets cold around here. And when it does, we take advantage of it. And one of the things that I've shared is that we keep all our winter clothes in storage, and it's just a good time to go get it out. But then 2 days later, you put it back in. One of the things that comes out frequently is our memes that say "Saca la San Marcos." Have you ever heard of a San Marcos, Josephine? A
No,
Sa-
what does it mean?
San Marcos is a blanket, a thick blanket from Mexico that usually has like the Cuauhtémoc or some tiger or a horse, and there's La San Marcos. It's a brand of colcha of quilt for,
Mhm.
but so
So yeah, it's
es,
time for
ahora es
time
tiempo
for
de
San Marcos.
el San Marcos. That's what el San Marcos. Porque es un cobertor. Oh, el San Marcos.
That's San
My my assistant just corrected me there. My producer. She's my assistant. She's crazy. At El San Marcos, I did not know that. I always have called it La San Marcos. That's one of the things with the Mexican language. You'll go between an El and La, and you have to figure out which one it is. Like a cold, you call it El Gripe. Es el gripe, ¿verdad? O la gripa. La gripa?
It's
La.
interesting because in Chinese there is no gender.
No?
No, so for like he and her, you just use ta, and so it doesn't differentiate. It's actually quite easier.
Okay. Josephine, thank you for coming on. Josephine Lee is a writer for Texas Observer.
Yeah, thank you for having me on your show.
It's a pleasure, and I I, um, I know that you've covered a story that several individuals here in our community have been covering, and you wrote on it. I think two articles already. Am I right?
Yes, we published a second article just last Thursday, I believe, just following the story of what happened to 11-year-old Timothy Murray in Brownsville ISD.
Yeah, and I hadn't seen the article. A couple of friends of mine sent it to me and said, like, "You're quoted on it." I'm like, "Oh yeah, we had a conversation." And but Joseph, to start off, what was it that drew you all to come and write a story on this happening here in Brownsville, Texas?
Yeah, so well, first of all, I want to apologize if you hear birds in my in the background. I do have birds. Hopefully, they're not too loud. But yeah, I'm based here in Texas Observer. We cover, stories all over the state. I'm based here in Houston, Texas. And so, I'm really new to Brownsville, but the organization Texas Appleseed had reached out to us because I had covered basically kind of like zero tolerance policies in schools before, and school districts violating the threat assessment law that protects children and parents from excessive, police actions. And so they reached out to us and told us about what happened to Timothy Murray, and so which we found pretty shocking. And so we started investigating what was happening there. But unfortunately, it just seems like uh, yeah, it seems like there's still a lack of accountability, and they seem to be piling other charges, for this 11-year-old kid. And so, yeah, but that's how we kind of found out about it. And just from covering it, from the what happened to Timothy from the beginning, it does seem like there was just like a failure to serve the child, right, from the get go. And so this was a kid who had lost his father, right, just this year, right, earlier in April. And then he had asked for a counselor in the beginning of the school year, right? And so all of this, happening just within the semester. And, at the point where he asked the counselor, one might think that, well, we have to address some of his mental health needs, right? But then afterwards, it's some like, escalation. And then this principal, Marta Garza, seems like, she felt that she was being challenged, right, by him pressing on the need for a counselor. And then it led to him emailing the superintendent after he felt like he didn't get a response. And then just 5 days later, after emailing the superintendent, saying that he felt like he was being picked on by the principal, he was arrested and then put in solitary confinement for 3 days. This was back in September. Right. So it seems like there was a failure from beginning to the end to really be accountable to the law, to be accountable to children and parents. Um, so that's the short of it. But yeah, and I can go on to what's happened since then.
Well, one of the things that you mentioned is something that's really very, very concerning to me, because one of the things that I think that we talk a lot about is mental health, mental health of a lot of our students. And I mentioned to you when we spoke for the article for the second article, how I served on the BISD board as a board member, and that was one of myself and another fellow board member, Laura Perez Reyes, greatest concerns in regards to were we actually meeting the mental health needs of our students. In the time that I served on the board, we had, I'm hoping I'm not remembering wrong, we had at least five suicides uh,
Oh,
of our students. And it's really very, 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 very painful, because I did get to go to each one of the funeral services, and it's just a very, very difficult situation. One of the things that was a constant, I don't know if it's a practice that happens all over, but it happens here. At the funeral home, they'll start putting up these pictures up there of the individual and the family and the birthday parties and everything. And on most of these individuals, there was a constant theme. There was this look of sadness that you could see in the pictures, and it was one of the reasons why we took up arms and started speaking in regards to the mental health. I don't think that it was ever brought to the forefront in regards to being a priority for the district, unfortunately, and I think that that continues to be the case right now. And if I'm understanding correctly, for this student who recently lost his father, don't you think that, I mean, without the child having to ask for a counselor, shouldn't a school district or any school district immediately work on providing some type of help and assistance for that student, and maybe even for his classmates?
right. I mean, I think that was like a huge gap from the get-go, right? There was no counselor at that school at the beginning of the year to be able to address those needs, response when you ask for a counselor, right? And then afterwards, after he had emailed the superintendent saying that he felt like he was picked on, then, there was basically silence, right? A wall of silence from the superintendent as well. And so at that point, there should have been like some kind of investigation, right, to his email. But then you come to, like 5 days later after he sent that email, the response to that, I mean, using action when, again, like you said, there's laws in place that say that, you counselors should step in, right? Look at a child's mental health. In this case, honestly, it, the threat seemed unsubstantiated, or it seemed like there needed to be more investigation as to the basis of that threat or the supposed threat. But to put a child in solitary confinement, right, after this whole series of incidents, right, and then still there isn't accountability for the people, involved. My understanding is that the principal is still in her position. There hasn't, the BISD said that they would pursue an investigation. The results of that investigation still have not been made public. We've asked for it. They haven't given it to us. Instead, they're deferring to the attorney general for ruling on even, revealing it. And then you have this more recent incident, right, where it seems like they're trying to build charges against Timothy. He goes to a school that the principal used to work at, right? And then he finds that, the assistant principal there who had worked under Garza, right, got the police involved again, right, to file a police report for aggravated assault, right? And this is, he had pulled the kid's hair, and Timothy told me that he was aiming to cut his, like, kind of jokingly cut his test paper, but the kid later on, he also had withdrawn, or retracted his accusation, saying that that's what he was doing, but still they went on and filed a police report. I mean, for aggravated assault, for that, right, for an 11-year-old. And so, they not only did they not drop the charges, but it seems like they're trying to pile it up, right? And to me, not being from Brownsville, it's just amazing because there's supposed to be certain institutions in place, right, that provide some kind of check and balance. And so, what happens when, a parent feels like their right is being violated, right? They should be able to go through some kind of grievance procedure in the school district. School district should be able to investigate, right? Or if not, then they should be able to go to the state, and the state should investigate, right? Or the local media covers it and put some public pressure on it. But it just seems like those institutions, those like kind of checks and balances, I haven't seen that kind of response. And probably you can provide more insight into why that is, because I am not from, Brownsville, but it just doesn't seem like those checks and balances are happening there.
Well, it's really unfortunate, and it all goes back. This is my opinion. It all goes back to the money issue. It was something that you mentioned with it is that there's no counselor at the school. Unfortunately, that's one of the realities that a lot of us have had to deal with. That our students were not getting the services that are most needed for them to excel because of the budget. One of the things that I experienced while on the board was how they would the administration would provide these presentations in regards to where we could start, limiting staff in order to help the budget, and everything would come from the bottom. And and, and my question always was, well, why aren't we cutting from the top? Because at the time that you mentioned that this incident happened, we not only had a superintendent, we had two deputy superintendents and six assistants, area superintendents. I mean, you're talking about eight individuals, and none of them, addressed the matter the way that I feel, and I'm sure that the parents feel it should have been addressed. And unfortunately for us, and something that you mentioned was in regards to our media. We have no local media coverage, and unfortunately for our local media, they've become what I call advertising junkies, where they depend on the advertisers in order to stay in somewhat shape form of business out here. So we had the Brownsville Herald, which was our newspaper for many years, and they would never cover a story such as this one, or any story that placed the entity that was advertising on their paper in bad light, because a story like this, would put BISD in a bad light. They don't cover any stories from the hospitals, from the universities, or from our public utilities, who also scammed the city of Brownsville with 175 million through a Tenasca deal that you mentioned later on. But it is unfortunate. It all comes down to the dollar figure, the dollar amount, where only a selected few in our area receive the resources that should be divided amongst the whole, and they're put aside to benefit the few. we have, as of right now, I mean, I might be mistaken because I tend to stay away from the media, but as of right now, no other news agency has picked up on the story. And don't you think that that's a disservice to our community to have three television stations, a newspaper here and locally, and a newspaper out of McAllen, Texas, and none of them have even made reference to his story.
Yeah, no, I find that to be incredibly surprising because, usually, I mean, just being here from Houston, any little thing that happens in the school district, right? The news would be all over it. And then the people in power would be called to question, right? Forced to be accountable. But here, I do find it really surprising that that's not happening. My birds are especially loud today. I sincerely apologize. I
Okay.
think they're also trying to respond to you too. But yeah, no, I find it incredibly surprising that there hasn't been the local media coverage. And I wish, they would. And I wish they would take the story further and kind of go and dig where I
Deeper.
cannot, right? Because I am not from um, Brownsville. But yeah, I mean, I think like you're saying, and going back to like the mental health issue, you have to question if there aren't like those counselors in place, if those mental health needs are addressed. But then at the same time, from what I found from the public records that I got from the school district on the number of arrests, right? So I calculated there was 135 arrests per month of
It's
Brown
crazy.
ISD students. So when you have this imbalance, right, and you're not meeting the mental health needs of students, but then at the other time, there's all this police action, and you're responding to student behavior with police action, right? Then how are you setting these kids up? And then in this case, Timothy, who I've talked to, he's a student who very obviously wants to learn, right? He's like been pushing himself. He's trying to get straight A's, despite like what's happened to his dad, despite what's, happened to him recently with school administrators. And, he is still trying to stay as focused as possible on his academics. But then, that like you have to ask the question, are the schools, are, school leadership creating the kind of environment that allows kids to learn and to thrive, right? And we're talking about kids, right? And what is the appropriate response to kids when anything like this happens, right? But and so yeah, I mean that's been like kind of the focus of my previous investigations. It's just now Texas just passed a new law requiring armed guards, right, at each school. But then at the same time, if we find that these laws protecting parents and children are not being followed, you know.
Well, it's really very unfortunate, and I know we're short on time, but one of the things that is still very, and I wanted to ask you this.
Yeah.
You made mention in the article, and it's been said out there that law enforcement dropped the ball in regards to keeping the child longer than they are legally allowed to, because I think I read in the article in regards to them only being they can only hold them for 24 hours. They kept them for 72 in solitary confinement. Does this fall? What is your take on? Is it more the fault of law enforcement, or is BISD in some way at fault for this?
I mean, that's something that I can't answer whether or not, what kind of influence, right, the school
That
district had, right? I can't answer that question. But the law is that you're not supposed to put somebody in administrative segregation or, solitary confinement for more than 24 hours, right? But, he was arrested on a Friday, right? And so they
typical.
left him in there over the weekend. And they only allowed him to contact his mom when he started having a panic attack, right? And he wasn't eating. And so it's so many failures, I think, from beginning to end, from the school district, but then also from law enforcement. And then so if these institutions, if there is like no checks and balances, if there's, then what kind of protections do children and parents have under the system, right? If because speaking to the mother, she feels very much isolated, right? And that And something that you said before in talking to other parents, they kind of echoed what you said about, these people in power just protecting their own, right?
Oh yeah.
They have each other's backs, but then what happens to children and parents, right, who are in the system? And is someone looking out for them? And so I think that's a big question there.
The other thing that really amazes me, and I learned from the second article, is that it seems like the our local law enforcement, our DEA, is hell bent in regards to prosecuting this case, to the point where they're asking the judge for more time in order to get their case done, or case ready. I think that's ridiculous. I mean, it's stupid. You know, why do you need more time? Because if you had a solid case, you should have been ready for December the 13th. Was it December the 13th? You should have been ready for.
It was actually December 13th was already the second time they had postponed it, right? So they postponed it the first time to get more time. And then December 13th, they asked for another postponement. So, um, yeah, the timing does seem really questionable, right? So it does, on the surface, it does seem like, they're trying to build this case against this 11-year-old. And um, yeah, it's unfortunate. Again, he's 11, and so you have to think like um, what kind of future they're setting him up for.
Uh, just to clarify, was it BISD police or Brownsville Police Department?
The ISD police.
But were they the ones that detained the child for 3 days, or was it the county?
He was brought to the juvenile, detention center, Daryl B. Hester juvenile detention. It was there that he was kept 3 days. Yeah.
Oh, it's very unfortunate. And again, I know we're very short on time, and you are short on time. Uh, Hopefully, willing to come back and give us more updates in regards to what's going on in this case. I know that I've received messages from several other individuals that would like to speak to you in regards to similar cases or other cases. So I'm going to send you their number if
Yeah,
that's okay.
I would love to speak to people who can provide, more insight into what's happening. And yeah, I really hope that local media will pick up on this too. But in the meantime, like I'm grateful that, you're kind of shedding a light, right, on what's happening, and that, yeah, you've been there to do that. But yeah, and feel free to reach out to me. My email is lee@texasobserver.org.
lee@texasobserver.org.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'll keep that. I'll share that, and you can send that to me via message, and I'll make sure to pass that on. People thank you for reporting. Yeah,
Yeah.
we are very grateful. I think that's one of the things that you and I spoke about when we spoke. We are very grateful for outside news agencies coming down. So thank you, Josephine, and thank you, Texas Observer, and anyone else out there that is willing to come down and listen to the people of Brownsville. I think that's one of the things that really, and I hope our students here locally or anywhere else, please do not be discouraged to reach out, because something that I thought was very impressive is that this student reached out and sent an email to the superintendent. I mean, that has got to tell you that this is not a troublemaker. It's not not a bad student. It's
Mhm.
someone that has genuine concerns that need should have been addressed, need to be addressed. So encouraging to all students out there, all parents out there, don't give up. Continue to send emails, continue to document everything that happens, and please continue to reach out. Josephine, thank you for coming on.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for having me, and we'll definitely be in touch.
Good. Thank you. God bless. Um, Guys, that was Josephine Lee with the Texas Observer. We're waiting for Roman to come on, but Roman has crappy internet, and not only crappy internet, also has a crappy phone, so could not come on. Uh, Let me say, guys, one of the things that I think, uh, thank you for reporting a financial audit request. One of the things that I hope that most individuals take with them. We're not hating on BISD. We're not hating on the principals. We're not hating on anyone out there. We're just hoping for a better system because our community, like any other community out there, they deserve a better system than what we currently have. And look, folks, one of the things that I've always addressed, we've got to take into consideration the mental health of our students out there. We live in very trying times, and in times that are at by far more difficult than having to walk 3 miles in the snow to get to class. Because quieras or no, we have to deal with the internet age, and unfortunately, there's so much crap out there. And a lot of times, a lot of our kids, they get swayed one way or another by what they perceive to be a greater path, a better path. And then you have students out there who are truly concerned about their education and about their well being, and their needs and their wants are not being addressed by administration or by our local elected officials. And that's really, really what's very unfortunate because we're coming into election season, guys. Coming into election season next year, and it's really sad that all these individuals that are going to want to be reelected, like Jessica Gonzalez, Eddie Garcia, Daniela Lopez Valdez, uh, Minerva Peña, if or whoever is out there replacing her. There's going to be these individuals that are going to be out there and saying, like, we're for the children. But continuously, we get these happenings that show that they are truly not. And that's what's really very unfortunate that we have individuals who are gifted and given an opportunity to serve, an opportunity to be there for the community. And their only concern is to make themselves all the more richer or to enrich the vendors that put money into their pockets. And it's unfortunate that the bottom line is always the dollar. It's always about the budget. There's money for everything. And unfortunately for Timothy and for most of our students here at BISD, there is no money for what really ails our community. So, guys, Roman didn't come on, so I'm going to end it now. End it now, and hopefully we'll be back tonight at 9 p.m. unless I have to go to the movies or something. But guys, we have to continue to come together as a community, folks. It's the only way that we're going to make a difference. And as much as I've been slacking off some in regards to shows and stuff, it doesn't mean I don't care. It's just that, at times we get tired, and I get tired. I get tired of the same crap. I get tired that most of the times I feel like I'm fighting alone. So yeah, every so often throw some words of encouragement out there. Every so often is to just let us know that you're still around. Uh, if we do not unite as a community, nothing will ever change. We'll continue to have cases where our students' mental health needs are not being met. I'll continue to have to go to funerals for students who have committed suicide. And that's really unfortunate because it doesn't say uh, a lot about our administration and our leadership. It does say a lot about our community. And have a great day. And have a great day. Thank y'all for being patient with me. I'll be back tonight at 9 p.m. maybe. And if not, I'll let you know. Guys, be good to each other. Continue to be good to me. God bless.